Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Syahid Alif Aiman bin Muhammad Nasir from Group 4. My group and I choose registration interest caveat. This table of contents. And the next slide is introduction. The case involves Rakyat Corporation Sdn Bhd giving money to Abdul Naim bin Tamiji to purchase land. Abdul Naim failed to make the appropriate payment despite reminders, causing Rakyat to sue him. Later, it was discovered that Abdul Naim had placed a caveat on the property without having completed the payment, which is the subject of our caveat discussion. For the next slide is parties involved. This is parties involved. For the plaintiff in this case that we have chosen in Rakyat Corporation Sdn Bhd. The plaintiff is a bank that's located in Megong, Alustar, Kedah. The plaintiff lent out a loan for the defendant for a house that the defendant is trying to purchase, but in many cases of the defendant not making progress payment towards the plaintiff for differential sum despite many notice and reminders sent by the plaintiff. The plaintiff decided to take this case to the court so that it can be settled. For parties involved defendant, in this case that we have studied, the defendant is Abdul Naim bin Tamiji, who lives in Parit Muntar, Perak, who is trying to buy a house with the help of a loan from Bank Kerjasama Rakyat. But after many cases of him not paying the progress payments towards the bank for differential sum, the bank decided to take an action against him as he had failed to pay despite many notice and reminders sent. After this, he decided to enter a private caveat on the said land that he is trying to purchase, in which the plaintiff said that he had no right or any caveatable interest towards the said land and urged for it to be removed.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Muhammad Irfan bin Saleh, and for my part, I'm going to present facts of the case. Alright, for facts of the case, firstly, on March 21, 2000, the plaintiff and the defendant entered into a sale and purchase agreement for a property priced at 80,000 ringgit. The defendant paid 16,000 as a partial payment. Next, the defendant secured a loan of 52,000 ringgit from Bank Kerjasama Rakyat Berhad, leaving a balance of 12,000 ringgit to be paid directly by the defendant. Next, despite reminders, the defendant failed to pay the 12,000 ringgit balance, resulting in the plaintiff sending several notices and reminders. Next, due to non-payment, the plaintiff issued a notice of termination of the SPA on October 17, 2001 and again on March 18, 2002 after further non-compliance by the defendant. And after that, the defendant expressed a desire to continue with the loan and pay the remaining balance but failed once again to fulfill these obligations, leading to further legal action. The defendant placed a private caveat on the property which the plaintiff contested, arguing that the defendant had no valid claim to the land. And for the allegations and defense, the defendant claimed the plaintiff breached the sale and purchase agreement by not adhering to construction standards and raised concerns about discrepancies in progress payment certificates. And for the court proceedings, several affidavits were exchanged and the court eventually ruled in favor of the plaintiff, excluding a late affidavit from the defendant. And for the final decision, the court referenced to the case of luggage distributor Sdn Bhd vs Tan Hor Teng and Anor at 1,995, ultimately siding with the plaintiff and awarding costs. The defendant has filed an appeal against this decision. And that's all for my part. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Muhammad Afiam Shabri Muhammad Asmadi. For the plaintiff's argument, the following are the plaintiff's argument and claims that they have made against the defendant. There are few items exhibited by the plaintiff as proof for the claims that they made towards the defendant. The plaintiff and the defendant entered a sale and purchase agreement in which the plaintiff, Bank Kerjasama Rakyat Berhad, lent out a loan to the defendant for him to buy a land. But after some time, when the defendant had stopped making progress payments toward the plaintiff sent some notice and reminders towards the defendant for him to pay the differential sum of 12,000 ringgit before the plaintiff can release the remaining amount of 52,000 ringgit towards the defendant. Despite the notices and reminders sent, the defendant still did not pay the progress payment towards the plaintiff. Thus, the plaintiff decided to take the copies of the reminders sent as proof and exhibit in court for support to their claims. In accordance to the terms and conditions of the SPA, the plaintiff had issued a notice of termination of the sale and purchase agreement to the defendant, as they have decided that the defendant would not make progress payment towards them, and the notice was also collected as exhibited as proof. Once the plaintiff learned that the defendant has entered a private caveat on the said land, the plaintiff stated that the defendant has no caveatable interest towards the land, as he did not even fully have paid the loan amount that he was supposed to pay. The defendant made an affidavit. He denied that he had purposefully neglected to make progress payment and said that he had retained from making progress payment due to the plaintiff breaching of CL12 of the SPA. The plaintiff, in response to the defendant's affidavit, filed an affidavit to rebut the defendant's affidavit. When the defendant made an affidavit but was not served on the plaintiff, the learned counsel of the plaintiff urged the court not to consider the defendant's affidavit as it was not served towards the plaintiff.
I will explain about defendant argument. The defendant claimed that they had signed a sale purchase agreement with the plaintiff for the purchase of the land and the house. They argued that the contractual relationship gave them a givable interest in the property under Section 323 National Land Code. The defendants said they had to pay RM16,000 ringgit towards the purchase price which the plaintiff admit. This payment is cited as a reason for entering private caveat. The defendant also claimed that the plaintiff breached Clause 12 of the SPA which related to the construction of the house. The defendant claimed that the construction did not comply with the plan approved by relevant authority, and that violence entitled them to withhold payment of the balance and enter a private caveat to protect his interest land. Defendant also believe in his right to protect his interest in the land through a caveat. Defendant had cited procedural correctness in the application process, such as confirmation of Form 19B and statutory declaration supporting their claims. Even if defendant answering the affidavit is not considered by the court due to procedural issue, this late filing and defendant take a long time to reply the affidavit. That's all. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Muhammad Hafizi. Today I want to talk about the case include the caveats. So for my part, I want to talk about the court decision. So the court decision is include the Court of Appeal. So the Court of Appeal required the caveat to enter by the defendants to be justified according to the caveat law. So the court used the largest distribution case as the precedent to determine the validity of the caveats. So that's mean the defendant have met the private caveats. For this, the private caveat must be which is uphold or not. So the court have used the largest distribution case that have the three stages where identified for the evaluating the caveats. So for the first stage, have the defendant must do the submission of the form 19B by the caveator to state the reason justifying the caveat. So in this stage, the defendant has passed the first stage by showing the ownership claim and payment evidence. So that means the defendant say that they have the evidence that the defendant have paid the RM 60,000 ringgit to the plaintiff, and then the defendant has done to go to the next stage. So for the next stage, for the stage 2, they have the examination of affidavit evidence to assess the legitimacy of claim interest. For this stage, the court get the second level caveats when the aggrieved parties applies to cancel the caveats. So the court should examine the evidence. Based on the fact, it's clear that the plaintiff has suffered loss and has complied with the clause 4. So that the plaintiff has evidence that the construction has been complete according to the plans. However, the court states the defendant as the buyer had breached the SPA, the sale purchase agreement, for not paying the amount within the stipulated periods. So that means the defendant has breached the agreements. So the court rules that the defendant failed to justify the caveats in the second stage, thus allowing the plaintiff to apply for his cancellation. So I go pass to my friends.
And lastly, for the conclusion, the court ruled that the defendant failed to pay required installment under clause 4 of the SPA, despite proper certification, and could not justify withholding payments based on clause 12. The plaintiff complied with all requirements, and the defendant's breach justified termination under clause 9 in bracket 2. The defendant had no valid grounds for a caveatable interest, so the court allowed the plaintiff to remove the caveat with cause. That's all from us. Thank you.